All right, I want to talk about this yellow vests, situation, if you want to call it that. I think this is a huge thing. We've obviously covered this quite a bit. If you follow our articles and stuff every day on collectiveevolution.com, Richard Enos, one of our writers, he wrote the article "Why the Yellow Vest Movement Could Erupt into a Modern Day French Revolution." Now, of course, the point there is to say that France has in the past been like a tipping point for, you know what, we've had enough of the rule of the elite, and we're ready to sort of do something about it. Now, when you think of the Yellow Vest movement, it depends on what you're looking at. Alternative media, mainstream media. Mainstream media shows just purely violent clashes, and they mix a little bit of truth in there about what people want and what people are after. But the idea is they're trying to create, it's a big chaos. It's chaos down there, and people are violent, and people are crazy, and they're destroying the city, and it's a problem, and we need, I saw recently something where someone was talking, they were blaming Facebook. Some big official in France was blaming Facebook because any person could just take a video of what's going on in France, post it on Facebook, and then cause an uproar on the internet about what's going on. The thing that's interesting about this is, again, it goes back to this idea that it always used to be mainstream media who controlled all the narratives, right? They were the ones filming, they were the ones creating the video, the ones who had the reach. Now that mainstream media doesn't have the pull it has, and alternative media is starting to balance things out a little bit, it's starting to show people that, hey, what I'm being told over here is not necessarily what I'm being told over here, and there's different perspectives, and that's important, right? And so it almost seems like people in ruling classes or in elite classes that oversee a lot of this stuff are getting very frustrated with the idea that they can no longer just create and shape a narrative all the time. But this is really interesting, and this is where I think this yellow vest thing is pretty cool because, this morning, this is what sparked the idea to do this video. This morning I saw CNN post, "Who are the yellow vest protesters causing chaos in France?" Now, what I love about this headline is it's like, they're the ones causing the chaos in France. Now, nowhere in there, and this is what I always touch on when I say it's important the way media and headlines are told, and this is why we do what we do at Collective Evolution with conscious media, is when you say the yellow vest protesters are causing chaos at home, immediately all the people who are overseas, who are not there and not seeing what's going on and who just consume mainstream media like CNN, it fulfills this narrative of these people are bad. They're doing something to their government. They're burning buildings. They're burning cars. They're doing all this stuff that they shouldn't have done, right? And these are bad people. They're chaotic individuals, right? And they blame the yellow vests. Nowhere does the article talk about how, and has mainstream media talked about how these people are responding to an overall frustration of, like, it's been a really long time that events have taken place like this, which is what has actually caused the chaos, in a sense, right? You treat people so poorly for so long that they eventually go, I'm breaking. And so it's not the yellow vests that are causing the chaos, as the narrative suggests. There's an overall system in place that had to break at some point. Like, people have been calling it for years and years and years. It had to break, and so it's just interesting, the blame game that you start seeing back and forth. And it's not even about blaming the system. It's about blaming, or it's about looking at, this is a better way of saying it, it's about looking at the level of consciousness that not only creates this system, but that continues to support it by continuing to just be like, yeah, okay, we'll just do this, and we'll just keep it on and keep it on, right? And it's funny because over in the US and in other areas of the world that, they don't have certain socialist tendencies to their government, you have people going like, oh yeah, see, this is the demise of socialism. Everything's falling apart because of socialism. It's like, okay, hold on a second. When you really look at democracy, socialism, all these things, there's really no difference in the end result. There's no difference. It's all the same shit. All the isms that are created from this level of consciousness is going to produce a suppressed and enslaved society. Central banking is not something of socialism or democracy or progressive governments or liberal government. It doesn't matter. It's all the same shit. Yes, there might be slight differences in how people are taxed, But at the end of the day, everyone's living the same. They don't have enough money. They aren't doing what they want to do most of the time. They're oppressed by a government. They're enslaved by central banking. They have poison in their food and their water and their environment. It's all the same, no matter where you go. So why are we trying to then be like, oh, we're better over here because we have this, and those people over there, they're falling, their socialism is falling apart? Nuh-uh. What's going on in the US and Canada and the UK and France and Europe and other areas when you start looking at African countries and all the different things going on and the different types of governments that are run, the different types of things that happen? It doesn't matter what ism you call it. We're enslaved. That's the reality of the situation. When you agree to be governed by someone, you take your power and you give it to them, right? And you have illusions of power, you have illusions of freedom. You know, in the United States, they call it the land of the free, and oh, it's about freedom. There is no freedom there. There are certain levels of freedom, but what is freedom? What is that? How do you define that? What does that look like, right? Is it a mask being pulled over our eyes to say, hey, you're free? Or is it, you know, what is it to you, right? And this is the big question, because to me, freedom is first and foremost, being free within myself such that I'm not run by my own thoughts all the time, my own emotions. I'm not so triggered by everybody and getting offended all the time, right? That means I'm not free. These people are able to impact an ego in my mind or my brain, however you want to look at it, whatever you want to call it. And they're able to manipulate me such that I can suddenly just lose control. Therefore, I'm no longer free. Then you can start going outward and start saying, well, in the world, I mean, am I able to go here and go there and go this and do that and do that? No, I can't, because there's borders, there's rules, there's costs, there's tax, there's you know, all these different little things that you have to do. You know, X amount of paperwork that you have to send out. All these different things that associate with, we are not actually free. It's an illusion, right? And so when I look at what's happening with the Yellow Vest protesters, when I look at the mainstream media's view and they're looking at it as, oh, these protesters are causing chaos. And then you look at, you know, some people in the West are like, yes, this is amazing what's happening. They're seeing it and they're going, you know, these people are starting to wake up. Is this the tipping point for a greater, you know, sense of people waking up? Is this an example for what's going on? Then there's other people who are looking at it and going, oh, you know what, this is the fall of socialism over there. See, you taxed people too much. You can't do that. And what I'm looking at, and when I look at this situation, when I see everything that's going on, I see it as you're seeing a set of people that have had enough with the system that exists across the entire planet. Let's just get real and honest with it. They've had enough with suppression within them, within a world where, you know what, it's like we're not really free to do what we want to do. We're enslaved by many, many, many systems out there, right? I agree with certain aspects, for example, of what Trump is doing to help break down parts of the deep state and the cabal, the old rule, the old regime. I can see that happening. If you really step back, get your head out of politics for a second and look at what's happening very clearly, he's pulling apart aspects of an old regime. He is. But do I agree with Trump's vision of a world? So far, I would say no. When I see what he's saying, when I look at the stuff that he's trying to create, I don't entirely agree with it. I think it would result in the same type of stuff that you're seeing here in France. Because guess what? You're still going to be governed all the time. You're still going to be taxed all the time. You're still going to be, living in a system probably of central banking and debt, right? You know, he hasn't said anything about totally abolishing that from at least what I've seen, right? Now, maybe he's going in steps, which is fair. But based on what we're currently seeing, right, do we agree with that vision of the world? How far do we really want to dream this? And this is what I'm getting at here when it comes to this stuff, is the Yellow Vests have, put out a list of demands. And actually, one of the things I want to touch on here, because it's key, right? Because they talked about all these different demands. Now it's starting to spread across, right? The mainstream media is always like, it's a fuel tax, it's a fuel tax, it's a fuel tax, right? But then it's spreading into, no, we also don't want this tax. We also don't want that crap to happen. We don't want these people to be affected this way. We don't want this to happen. And it's just pushing and pushing and pushing. And before you know it, the more people get to dreaming again, get to realizing, what did they realize in France? The people have the power. The people have the power. We always have had the power. We just keep giving it up. You don't need to create violence and chaos for it to happen. You just need to stop. You just need to stop doing everything we're doing. right? And start making a big enough amount of noise to say, we're not doing this anymore. And you let that go worldwide. Imagine this was happening in 20 countries all at once, right? It would be a big deal, right? It would be a huge thing. And so one of the things I wanted to touch on here is there's an interesting point actually in this article where it starts talking about like, an eco tax, right? So it's like, oh, we're trying, environmentalists, the yellow vests are someone was saying, oh, they wanted to help with the environment and all that sort of stuff. And people online were saying, hey, yeah, we're the yellow vest group that's, taking control of the environment. We want the environment to be taken care of. But the yellow vests are saying, we don't want this eco tax. And this is something that's interesting because on my Facebook just the other day, someone had said, oh, we need to focus entirely on the environment because we only have 15 years to turn it around. Well, 10 years ago, I was told we only have 10 years to turn it around. Here we are, and we're still here. I'm not saying the environment's in great shape, but, all of these things, these terms, these things that get tossed out about the environment, about climate change, the reality is it's very unclear. We don't fully understand what we're doing, what's going on in this situation. And when I look at this eco tax, right, and they're talking about the eco tax, and the yellow vests are saying, no, we don't want this. So are they saying they don't care about the environment? No. The way we're going to solve the environmental issues isn't by saying, hey, government, we have a problem over here. We need to create some eco taxes. That's the illusion. That is how we just get taxed more. That's the point of why they created the whole CO2 narrative to begin with, was for taxation, was to blame it on you and make you pay for it, right? That's what happened. Instead, what these people are saying is, no, it's all of this entire system, everything, is what's contributing to the demise of the environment. There's nothing as citizens we can do to just simply change one thing here or there. We have to opt out of the entire system. It's like you either have to stop buying everything, right? Which is not really practical because the way we're currently living, it's you can't just suddenly like, okay, I'm growing all my food instantaneously. I'm making all my clothes instantaneously. It's like, it's not possible, right? And that's not even a world that I think anyone wants to live in. We do want certain central areas creating certain needs for people, but it needs to be done harmoniously. It's not going to be done harmoniously within the current system and structure because people can't turn a profit. It can't be done. The system has to fall. It has to crumble. The way to create environmental sustainability is to remove the system that we have. And sustainability should not even be the goal. Thrivability should be the goal. Sustainability is nothing more than it's here and we're just going to keep it here. Where it's at right now, not a good spot. Let's get it to thrivability. Let's get it from, hey, we're doing this and we're making stuff, but we're also making sure our environment keeps friggin' getting better and better and better. That's what I'm looking for, right? And how do we get there? Again, the whole system needs to come down. So these people in France, there's a lot of these yellow vest protesters, the people that are talking, are looking at it from a standpoint of, let's reimagine everything, which is an inspiring thing because really that's what this is about, right? Yeah, sure, a lot of the demands are still talking about things within the system. Yeah, we take that away. But at the end of the day, we could just keep blowing this up. We can keep expanding. You know what? We don't want any of this stuff. Why do we want it, right? And then let's start doing what I said in videos before. I said in a video before that people were saying, like, oh, that's unrealistic, Joe. I said, make something chaotic happen in a sense, but looks chaotic, right? And then have conversations about where we're going to go. What's happening right now? Their yellow vest protesters have stopped a lot of the, business is not as usual in France. So they've stopped things and now they're looking at it and they're going, all right, let's start having a conversation. What do we want to do here, people? Let's talk about this. My suggestion is you get one of the yellow vest representatives, you get Macron, you get a live stream, talk it out, have a conversation. Go face to face, make them eye gaze, make them look at each other, make them see what's going on within each other, right? Why not? You have the power to do it. Why not, right? Demand what it is that you want in a sense, right? Ask for it. That's all it really is. And this is the thing that I'm saying when it comes to a lot of this stuff is that we think, like a lot of the comments I got on the particular video where I was saying opt out of voting, people were like, oh, well, if we opt out, then, all the people are just going to go vote for Hillary Clinton. And then Hillary would have been in power instead of Trump. And I'm like, did you even watch the video? Did you completely miss the point? I'm saying everybody opt out. I'm not saying just the Republicans. See, that's how it shows that we filter everything through our political mind. The political mind of that commenter was, this person's on the left, I'm on the right. If I don't vote, which means only the people from the right don't vote, then only the leftists are going to vote, and then we have Hillary in power. It's like that's not what this is saying. We're talking above politics here. We're talking get your head out of politics, get it out of the game, the illusion, right? And say, hey, what are we really looking at? What do we really want to do here, right? And step back. An interesting thing here, just a little quote from someone actually, a yellow vest, I guess you could say protester, I don't know, what do you want to call it, that was on the ground. Luke Radowski, one of the journalists that we've been in contact with a lot, who was there in France talking with people, interviewing people. The protester had said, yes, it was about the tax on cars and fuel, but it was just the tipping point of something much bigger. Essentially, everything that happened during the Macron government since the beginning, but it's not about Macron, it's about 40 years of destruction of these public domains, the banking sector taking over the country. And people are feeling it not just in their wallets, but they are feeling it in their neighborhoods, their grandmother, their sisters, their baker. Everyone is talking about it since many years. What really triggered all of this is, first of all, Macron's rhetoric, because he has really a way of talking which is extremely aggressive towards people who are working, who are fed up and with having to cross the red line on the bank account every second month and not being able to pay for simple things like their children for Christmas. But I think we are getting a lesser effect, which is everything is coming together into a single point, and it's not about right wing with Antifa or whatever getting into violent games. It's much bigger. Like I've seen people throwing rocks at policemen, you would never expect this kind of people to do this in their life. It's because they're really getting insulted on a daily basis for what they're doing, and now I guess they have crossed the line, and this line will never get back, never. So again, what are we seeing here? We're seeing everything that we just finished talking about. The people they're done. They're done with it. It's like you pushed hard enough for long enough, and we're just not going to do it anymore. What I'm hoping is that a manipulative government doesn't decide to say, okay, here's kind of the rules and here's what we're going to do, right? And just get off the streets. Let's bring things back to normal, right? And then what happens is you're going to see, okay, everybody, okay, we're good. And then a year later, it all goes back to the same crap. We saw that in Iceland with the Icelandic Revolution before, where people kicked out all their bankers. They kicked out the politicians. Some people went to jail, all this sort of stuff. They were on the streets. All this stuff happened. It was great. It was very peaceful protest in a sense. And then it's like all of a sudden, a couple years later, it was like they had amnesia and they pushed everything back into the same position, and it's the same they've had since, right? And so the hope is that we don't do this here again, because again, this comes down to a level of consciousness, right? If you go back to the same old level of consciousness, the same old way of seeing and thinking about everything, you will recreate that same system all over again. Protesting will bring about certain things, certain opportunities, right? It can only take us so far. The rest of the way has to be completed by shifting our consciousness enough that we no longer are producing the same system that created this to begin with, right? And this is the key element that we're just not talking about, that it needs to be brought into this equation when we go to the voting booth, when we think about the things we're thinking about, when we talk to people online. If we're not thinking about consciousness and how consciousness is creating the reality here collectively, and that our agreement and that our unwillingness to let go of the systems that we have, that is what creates the systems. You can protest all day long. You can get people to listen to your demands. If you don't shift as a collective, starting individually, it doesn't matter. You're going to recreate the same shit within 5, 6 months, 7 months, a year, whatever it may be. We need to change the way we view ourselves, the way we view each other, the way we view our world, and the way we view what is possible. I think the yellow vests are an opportunity to begin seeing that, and the rest is up to us as individuals to actually begin doing this work. And that's what we've been pushing here at CE since the very beginning, 10 years ago. Things will not change in a deep way unless we actually begin doing the work. That's why we mix consciousness into our news. We talk about world events from a conscious perspective, because if you don't, we'll just be going around the hamster wheel over and over and over and over again, like we have been for a while. And when it seems like it's going to change, and like we're like, yes, it's been like 3 years of like things are looking like it's going to change, it just goes right back to the same system, same problem, same stuff over and over again. So we need to step off the hamster wheel. We need to make the changes and start saying, okay, what do we really want to do here? Start having the conversations. Start looking at this in a bigger way. That's what I think this is challenging us to do. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and share a comment if you have anything to say. You can also subscribe to our channel just above my head up here so you can get more videos like this. Collective Evolution stays alive in this era of massive censorship through support from viewers like you. Up in the right-hand corner of the screen, you can join our Conscious Media Movement campaign, which allows you to become a monthly supporter and help keep conscious media and Collective Evolution alive. Thanks and peace.